I don't know when exactly my family stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a walking wallet. Maybe it was after I landed that big promotion. Maybe it was after I bought my first home at 29 while my older sister Jenna was still being evicted from her third apartment in as many years. Or maybe, just maybe, they never really saw me any other way. It started innocently enough. Jenna called me crying one night. Said her rent was overdue, she was 3 months behind, and if she didn't pay it by Monday, she and her daughter would be out on the street. That daughter, my niece, Sophie, was the only reason I said yes. I've always had a soft spot for her, maybe because I saw a piece of my own childhood in her eyes. The quiet kind of sadness you only get when you grow up in a family that loves conditionally. I wired Jenna $2,400 the next morning. She didn't even say thank you. Just a screenshot of the confirmation from her landlord and a thumbs-up emoji. That was the first mistake. A week later, she called again. Max, I'm sorry. I don't know who else to ask. My credit cards are maxed. I owe almost $5,000. I paused. $5,000. I made good money, senior analyst for a logistics firm. But I wasn't made of cash. Still, the thought of Sophie hungry or Jenna getting chased by debt collectors made my stomach twist. I paid the debt. And again, no thank you. No dinner. No hug. Just a text that said, got it. Appreciate you. That was the second mistake. Then came the car. Jenna doesn't have a license. She's one of those people who never got around to it. But she loves to drive anyway, illegally, of course. One Friday evening, I was halfway through grilling steaks when my phone buzzed. Max, please. Just for the weekend. I need to take Sophie to her friend's party, and I've got no way to get her there. She promised she'd be careful. I'll just take your old Civic. The one you never drive anyway. It wasn't just a Civic. It was my first car. Sentimental value aside, it still ran beautifully, and I kept it in the garage like a shrine. But against my better judgment, I said yes. I even handed her the keys myself. That was the third and final mistake. Saturday night, I got the call. Not from Jenna, but from the police. Mr. Haynes? Your vehicle was involved in a collision. Can you confirm the driver? I told them it was my sister. They said she refused to speak to them and insisted the car was stolen. Stolen. I almost dropped my phone. When I got to the station, it got worse. Jenna was sitting there, arms crossed, bruised but alive. She wouldn't look at me. An officer pulled me aside. She says you reported the car stolen after she borrowed it. Claims you're trying to frame her. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. But the officer didn't. Because Jenna had apparently filed a counter-report, saying I was emotionally abusive, manipulative, and punished her by threatening her with false police claims. There was a report. There was a crash. And now, there was a record on me. They didn't arrest me that night. But I was told in very polite, very firm language that I needed to come in for questioning that Monday. And that if anything she said turned out to be credible, I could be facing criminal charges. I left the station in shock, disbelief barely letting me breathe. And then I made one more mistake. I called my parents. Their response? Max, it's just a misunderstanding. You know how dramatic your sister gets. Dramatic? Dramatic? I reminded them I had literally saved her from eviction, paid off her debt, handed her the keys to my car. Their response? Well, maybe she felt cornered. Maybe you were being too controlling with your help. Controlling. That was their word. Controlling. They told me to let it go, to let the legal system sort it out. And then my father had the audacity to say, just apologize to Jenna. That's all she really wants. I hung up without another word. That night, I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat in the dark. The same realization repeating itself in my mind like a record skipping. They were never on my side. Not ever. And that's when the gears started turning. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to threaten. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to end this entire game. Quietly. Legally. Permanently. They thought they knew me. Thought I'd keep playing the good son, the helpful brother. They had no idea who they were messing with. And the first move? I opened my laptop and logged into an account nobody in my family knew existed. An account holding something Jenna and my parents had no clue I had access to. Let's just say, my sister's financial skeletons weren't quite buried, and I was about to start digging. Monday morning, I wore my best Navy suit. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I knew I was walking into a police station, and appearances matter. They always have. Especially when your sister's trying to paint you as a vindictive lunatic. The detective assigned to the case, Detective Kershaw, was polite but firm. He asked about the car. I gave him everything. Texts, timestamps, even the stupid selfie Jenna had sent from inside the Civic with a Starbucks cup in the cup holder. She posted it to her Instagram story. 20 minutes before the crash. He raised an eyebrow and nodded. That helps. I didn't ask more. Just gave my statement and left. It was clear the police weren't buying Jenna's story anymore, but that didn't mean I was safe. Once someone hurls that kind of accusation at you, it doesn't just vanish. Even if it gets dropped, it lingers. So while the law was handling her lies, I handled her finances. See, Jenna was the kind of person who loved pretending she was smarter than everyone else. She once said she could hack the system and live rent-free on goodwill and finesse. That finesse included running several dodgy Venmo schemes and racking up personal loans under different name variations. And guess who had helped her consolidate all of that? Me. When I paid off her debt, I'd insisted she let me create a budgeting spreadsheet. What she didn't know was that I had copies of every bill, every account she linked, every login she typed in on my laptop. Old habits die hard. And now, I was logged into her primary email account, the same one she used for her banking, streaming services, Amazon wishlist, and everything in between. What I found made my blood run cold, and then hot. She had taken out 2 new payday loans in my name. Not attempts. Approved. Using information she must have gotten from our old tax filings when I tried to help her years ago. She'd borrowed $4,000 total and defaulted on the first payment. I stared at the emails. She didn't just screw me emotionally. She committed fraud. And I had proof. I didn't lose it. I didn't even get mad. I just called a lawyer. My lawyer, Adele Rowan, isn't the type to mess around. She'd helped a buddy of mine through a brutal divorce and came highly recommended. I brought her a folder with everything. Texts, screenshots, loan approvals, social media posts, even a copy of the forged rental agreement she tried to make for a different apartment using my credentials. Adele skimmed the folder in 5 minutes and said something that changed everything. Max, this isn't just fraud. This is identity theft. She could face felony charges. She asked if I wanted to press charges. I hesitated. Not because I wanted to protect Jenna. Those days were over, but because I needed to think bigger. Jenna didn't operate alone. My parents had enabled her. Again and again. They'd always treated me like an outsider. Like the guy who could help, but not someone worthy of respect. When I bought my house, they called it too much space. When I bought a new car, they said, that's nice. Maybe Jenna can borrow it. I was never just Max. I was always Jenna's backup plan. And I was done. So I told Adele something she didn't expect. I want to build the case. Not just against her, but anyone who helped her. She smiled. You want scorched earth? No, I replied. I want controlled demolition. We got to work. Over the next week, Adele and I built a timeline. We compiled her loans, identity fraud, and the pending false report she filed with the police. And meanwhile, Jenna had no idea. In fact, she was celebrating. I know because she went live on Facebook. She was at some cheap lounge with 2 girlfriends, drinking and dancing, captioning her video. New beginnings nail polish karma's real middle finger. She even tagged me. That same night, she emailed me. A single line. Maybe this is a lesson in what happens when you play favorites winking face. I didn't reply, but I did something else. I called my parents. I wanted to test the waters one last time, to see if they had a clue what Jenna had done. My dad picked up. My mom got on speaker. I asked them plainly, did you know Jenna took out payday loans in my name? There was a pause. Then my mom sighed. We were hoping you wouldn't find out. Hope. Not shock. Not denial. Not even remorse. They knew. They knew. She told us it was temporary, my dad said. She was desperate. You helped her commit a felony, I said flatly. No, don't say that, my mom snapped. She just made a mistake. You're being dramatic. And that's when I knew. They weren't just enablers. They were complicit. So I told them the truth. Do not contact me again. My lawyer will be in touch. And by the way, enjoy the house while you can. Click. See, I didn't just help Jenna with her rent and debt. Years ago, I helped my parents refinance their home to avoid foreclosure. And I used my name, my credit score, and my cash to do it. Technically, the deed had 2 names on it. Mine and my father's. He never read the fine print. Just signed where I told him. Guess who now had the legal leverage to reclaim full ownership? Adele's face lit up when I told her. Oh, they're going to regret everything. By the end of that week, We had a civil suit against Jenna filed. One for identity theft, one for defamation, one for damages, and one more document, a cease and desist to my parents. Plus, a formal notice to initiate transfer of the house title. They'd have 60 days to vacate. Or else. And that was just the beginning. Because I hadn't even gotten to the gift I planned to give them. You ever hear that saying, if you're going to go to war, don't swing a sword, drop a bomb? That was the energy I walked into the next month with. After filing the lawsuits, sending the notices, and freezing the accounts Jenna tried to open in my name, I did something that finally let me sleep at night. I changed my number. Blocked them all. Jenna, my parents, even the mutual cousins who texted me vague crap, like, family's forever, bro, or you're taking this too far. As if they'd ever stood up for me before. I had gone no contact. But they were just getting started. The emails began. At first, it was Jenna. You'll regret this. I have proof you manipulated me. Then my mother. I don't know how you could be this cruel to your own flesh and blood. Then my father, the one who used to scream at me for showing attitude when I didn't want to shovel the driveway after his poker nights. You're breaking your mother's heart. Is that what you wanted? I didn't reply to a single one, because I was busy preparing their gift. See, while Jenna was busy trying to gaslight her way out of fraud charges, and my parents were busy playing martyrs in the neighborhood. Yes, I got messages from their church group. I was using the time and quiet to prepare the kind of revenge that doesn't just sting, it shatters. Let me rewind for a second. Years ago, when I started working in logistics, I got obsessed with systems, processes, timing, chain of command type stuff. So naturally, I applied that same brain to my financial life. I owned multiple LLCs, shell companies really, just for investment purposes and tax sheltering. One of them, Maple Bridge Solutions, had been sitting dormant for 2 years. Registered in my name, headquartered on paper at a virtual office in Nevada. But it still had one incredible asset, control of a trust fund my grandfather left me, worth just under $400,000. He left it in my name alone. Never told my parents. Never told Jenna. Said it was for the one in the family who actually works. And now, it was time for Maple Bridge to get a new purpose. With Adele's help, I activated the LLC's rights to the trust and bought 2 properties, a small rental condo and a warehouse. Yeah, a warehouse. Stay with me. Inside the warehouse, I set up an exhibit, a private display, just for them. See, my sister and parents were obsessed with image. Social media perfect. Holiday cards with fake smiles. Christmas lights up before Thanksgiving. They loved appearances. So I made them one. A walkthrough timeline. The walls were plastered with photos, screenshots, emails. Everything. Her Venmo scams. The loan documents with forged signatures. A photo of her Instagram story, smiling in my Civic an hour before the crash. A screenshot of her text saying, I might just tell the cops Max threatened me. And in the middle, a television screen on loop, playing her Facebook Live from the lounge, drunk and smug, saying karma's real. Next to it, a printout of the lawsuit, with a single post-it. This is karma. You think I'm petty? You're right. But after 3 decades of being the second-class child in my own family, I wasn't looking for redemption. I was looking for closure. I sent the invite via certified mail, a plain white envelope to my parents and Jenna. The invite read, You're formally invited to a private viewing. Maple Bridge Gallery presents The Truth About Max. RSVP not required. Come alone. Doors open Saturday at 2 p.m. And yes, they came. I watched it from the security cam feed in my office. First, my mother and father. My mom walked in like she was stepping into a church. My father had his usual, this is nonsense, look until he saw the walls. Then Jenna. I'd pay to bottle the exact expression she made the moment she saw the printout of her own messages. Her face turned a shade of white I didn't think was possible. The video started playing. I watched them stand, frozen, as the truth they'd ignored stared them in the face. My mother started crying. My father walked out first. He didn't even make it to the end. Jenna stayed longer. I saw her trying to yank things off the wall. She couldn't. I'd laminated everything. Industrial glue. Mounted to heavy backing. You couldn't rip it unless you burned the whole wall. And trust me, she wanted to. 30 minutes later, the place was empty again. I got a single text from an unknown number about an hour later. It was Jenna. You sick F***CK. You think this is funny? You're going to regret this. I didn't reply, because the next part wasn't funny. The next part was justice. A week later, the DA called. The state was pursuing charges for identity theft. And because Jenna had already filed a false police report, the case was airtight. She was arrested the following Monday. My parents? They tried to protest. Went to her arraignment. Cried outside the courtroom. But I had one last gift. You remember that house they lived in? The one I helped them refinance and got added to the deed? Yeah, that one. I officially sold it. The buyers? A lovely retired couple who planned to demolish and rebuild. My parents got a 60-day notice. They'd have to be out by the end of the quarter. My father called Adele furious. Adele didn't even flinch. She just said, "Your son owns the property. He's well within his rights." They moved in with my aunt across town. As for Jenna, she pleaded out, got probation, but she lost custody of Sophie temporarily. That was the only part that hurt. Sophie didn't deserve that. So I made sure she was safe. I paid for therapy, covered the legal costs for her temporary guardian, Jenna's ex-boyfriend, surprisingly decent guy. And when Sophie texted me on my birthday, saying she missed me, I broke. I told her, "You'll always have me. I promise." Because in the end, this wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my name. People say family's forever. But what they forget to tell you is, so is trauma. After Jenna's arrest and the property sale, you'd think the story would end there. That maybe my parents, humbled and exiled, would do the decent thing, disappear, maybe even reflect. That Jenna would spend her probation trying to become a halfway decent human being. You'd be wrong on all counts. Because when people like that lose their power, they don't admit fault. They double down. It started subtle. My mom created a new Facebook profile after I blocked her. She started posting cryptic stuff. Some people forget who loved them first. Real family forgives. Snakes seek revenge. Meanwhile, my dad apparently started going to every barbecue, card night, and town meeting, spinning some fantasy about how I tricked them into signing over the house. Said I stole it. Told people I was a corporate sociopath who destroyed his own family for attention. One of the neighbors I used to mow lawns for when I was 16 actually emailed me. Subject line, "Is this true?" I didn't respond. I didn't owe anyone explanations anymore. But that didn't stop my parents from trying to rewrite the narrative. They filed a petition to reverse the property transfer. My dad claimed he was under duress when he signed the documents years ago. Adele laughed so hard she had to take her glasses off. They do realize that I have notarized copies of the contract, correct? She said. I let them file. Let them pay a $6,000 filing fee and lose in court publicly. By the time the judge tossed it, the entire county court record was updated with the fact that the deed was valid, the sale was legal, and my parents' claims were without merit. I printed the court's final ruling and mailed them a copy. No letter. No comment. Just the ruling. Framed. Petty? Yes. Necessary? Also yes. But the real dagger? That came later. Because I had one last card to play. You see, my dad wasn't just humiliated, he was unraveling. He started drinking again. My aunt told me he crashed her Camry trying to just take a drive to clear his head. My mom? She picked up a part-time job at a fabric store. Said she needed something to do. Truth was, they were broke. No more house. No savings. Jenna's legal fees had wiped out what little they had left. So guess who they came crawling to? You already know. It was a Friday afternoon when the letter came. Sent certified mail. Same as I had done to them. It was from a family representative. Some local attorney they scrounged up who probably charged them by the hour to write a pity-soaked appeal. The letter said, and I quote, "Given the severe emotional distress caused by recent events, my clients request a mediated conversation to resolve familial tensions. They are willing to apologize and are seeking financial assistance to secure new living arrangements." It read like a Hallmark card written by a vampire. I stared at the letter for a while. Something about it felt off. The words weren't theirs. They weren't even trying to sound real. It was pure manipulation, dressed up in legal polite speak. But then I flipped to the last page. And there it was. A list. A literal list. First month's rent for a 3-bedroom apartment. Utility deposits. Groceries. Gas stipends. Mental health support donation, I swear to God. And a $5,000 gesture of familial repair. $5,000. They were asking me for $5,000. After everything. After Jenna lied to police, stole my identity, nearly got me arrested, tanked my credit, and dragged me through court. After my parents knowingly enabled it, then tried to reverse a legal property transfer and slandered me across town like I was Lex Luthor. They had the balls to ask for $5,000. I didn't even tell Adele. I didn't need legal advice for this one. I pulled out a blank piece of paper and wrote 2 words. Never again. I signed it, put it in an envelope with their own letter attached, and sent it back via the same certified service. The tracking update said they received it 3 days later, and I haven't heard from them since. You'd think this would all make me bitter, that I'd sit in my big, quiet house stewing in betrayal. But the truth? I've never felt lighter. No more random cash requests. No more guilt trips. No more calls that started with, "Can you do me a favor?" and ended with my wallet crying. I started therapy, real therapy. Not talk to a friend and bottle it up therapy. Legit trauma work. Turns out, my parents had been manipulating me since I was 5 years old. Conditional affection. Withholding praise. Comparing me to Jenna every chance they got. They called me too serious when I got good grades. Said I was too ambitious when I got promoted. Called me obsessive when I paid off my loans before 30. Turns out, what they really meant was, you remind us of what we're not. I was a mirror they didn't like looking into. And instead of growing, they punished the reflection. But therapy taught me something else. That healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering it without letting it define you. So now, I sleep 8 hours a night. I cook dinner without needing background noise to drown out intrusive thoughts. I took Sophie to the aquarium last weekend. Her guardians invited me. She held my hand the entire time. Didn't say a word about her mom. Just smiled. Laughed at the penguins. Hugged me when I dropped her off. That girl still has a chance. And me? I finally let go of the fantasy that family fixes everything. Sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. The last time I saw my family was a Tuesday. It wasn't planned. Wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even about them. It was about Sophie. Her guardians had invited me to her school play. She had a solo, just 1 line, but she was nervous and had asked if I'd come. Of course I said yes. It was one of those low-budget elementary school productions where every costume is made from felt and tape, and the microphones squeal half the time. I sat in the 2nd row, next to her foster dad, and held a bouquet of flowers that I picked up on the way. She spotted me the second she walked on stage. That little grin, pure, honest, vulnerable, cut through every bitter thought I'd carried for months. That girl still loved her mom, still asked about her grandma, still believed in fairy tales, even if the villains shared her DNA. I gave her the flowers after the show. She hugged me so tight my ribs cracked. Then she said the words I didn't expect. "Mom's coming to see me on Saturday, but I wish you were coming instead." I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "You're the bravest person I know." And I meant it. We said our goodbyes, and I left through the side exit of the school. It was dark by then. Windy. The kind of night that makes you zip your coat and bury your hands deep in your pockets. I was halfway to my car when I heard a voice. Familiar. Shaky. Bitter. Still playing the hero, huh? I turned. It was Jenna, leaning against the hood of a dented Nissan Altima, arms folded, dressed like she was trying to play cool. But her eyes betrayed her. Red. Tired. Too old for her age. I didn't speak. Just waited. She stepped forward. "I saw you in the crowd," she said. "Didn't think you'd show." I raised an eyebrow. "She asked me to." She scoffed. "Of course she did. You're the new favorite now." I laughed once, dryly. "There was never a favorite, Jenna. Just the one who finally stopped playing dumb." She flinched. "You think I wanted any of this?" She snapped. "You think I planned for my life to turn out like this?" "No," I said honestly. "I think you planned for me to clean it up." We stood in silence for a moment. She looked thinner than I remembered. Not from effort, just worn. Like the truth had been eating her from the inside out. "They took everything from me," she whispered. I didn't need to ask who they were. She meant the court, the law, the world. Not once did she say I took anything from her. She knew the truth now, even if she couldn't say it out loud. "You still talk to them?" she asked. Them, meaning our parents. I shook my head. "No contact." She stared off into the distance. "You know they moved out of Aunt Pam's place. Staying in some crummy apartment now. Dad can't even afford beer anymore." I nodded, saying nothing. Jenna stepped closer. "They're mad at you. They always were. They said you betrayed us." I smiled. "Funny. That's what the cops said about you." She winced. Silence again. Then, softly, she asked, "Do you hate me?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about the lies. The identity theft. The phone call from the police. My Civic, wrecked and dumped. The public slander. The forged rental agreement. The time she called me a control freak after I paid off her debts and she still asked for more. And I thought about Sophie, her innocence, her hope, her trembling little voice saying, "I wish you were coming instead." I looked Jenna straight in the eyes. "No," I said. "I don't hate you." That would mean I still cared. She bit her lip, nodded once, and turned around. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't beg. Just got in her car and drove off. I watched the taillights disappear down the road. And that was the last time I ever saw her. It's been 2 years now. My parents never reached out again. I moved cities, got a new job, promoted, even. Bought a second home, this one with a garden. Therapy? Still going. Not because I'm broken, but because it helps to remember without bleeding. And Sophie? She's doing amazing. She lives with her dad full-time now. He got his act together. She's thriving in school, plays soccer, and sends me voice memos every few weeks. Calls me Uncle Maxie. Even asked me to come to her birthday this year. I bought her a telescope. She's into constellations now. When I dropped it off, she hugged me again and whispered, "I hope I grow up like you." I choked up, but I smiled. Because the truth is, I didn't get justice to hurt anyone. I did it to protect the little part of me that still believed in good. To prove to myself, to Sophie, and maybe to the universe, that sometimes walking away doesn't mean weakness. It means you're finally free. So if you're reading this and wondering whether it's worth it to cut off the ones who hurt you, let me tell you, yes, it is. Not for revenge, not for applause. But so one day, when a little girl looks up at you and says, "I hope I grow up like you," you can look her in the eyes and say, "You will, because you're not carrying what I left behind."